perfect. So I think that we're live now. So again, feel free to keep your cameras off and just remain muted while you're not talking, if that's okay. So to start things off, I'm Taylor. I'm from Brant, and I'm part of the committee of community members and folks from different agencies and organizations that have helped to kind of organize this weird and wonderful week of events for the 2021 Asset-Based Community Development Symposium. Obviously, this looks really different than it has in years past. So we just want to thank everyone for sticking around and joining us on this virtual adventure together. We're really excited to be having these virtual spaces to engage with a lot of really brilliant and creative and playful and resilient community connectors and community builders that are joining us from both our local area and beyond. I also just want to express big thank yous to our community partners and to the Ontario Trillium Foundation. As we begin tonight's conversation about connection and about art and about imagining our future, it's really crucial that we ground this conversation and ourselves in the histories and futures that imbue this space we currently sit. Across this amazing digital network we're cultivating, there are numerous stories of land, treaties, and stewardship. And as hosts, we're located on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral peoples. This land is part of the Haldimand Tract and is captured in the two-row Wampum Belt Covenant and Dish with One Spoon Treaty. These treaties instruct us to honor the original peoples of this land as stewards of this space, to embrace and celebrate the ecology and networks of nature that grow here, and to live lives of peaceful non-interference. So we would urge each of you to become more familiar with the treaties and nations of the land where you live in order to become more wholly informed in the work that you do and to more deeply connect with concepts of community and connection that we're discussing at the symposium this year. We'd also love it if you can put in the chat a bit about where you're coming from tonight. And also we'd love it if you could tell us about how you found this event. We also really want to acknowledge the lineage of disability justice advocates whose work for the cultivation of more inclusive online spaces has informed so many of the ways that we're able to easily connect, especially right now during COVID-19. We're really grateful to the generations of thinkers and activists who came before us to instruct and inform the resources, accessibility tools, and the social distancing techniques that have become a real lifeboat to our communities during these distance times. So we encourage engagement in this space, so feel free to use the chat. You can hit the reaction buttons while folks are talking, and feel free to participate in the Q&A, whether you're joining us on Zoom or over YouTube. And with that in mind, like I've said, please try to stay muted while other folks are talking. And I guess without further ado, let me pass things off to tonight's wonderful moderator, Denzel Gordon. Denzel is a musician and creative from Brantford. He hosts a weekly community radio show called Expect Defiance on 101.5 The Hawk from Hamilton. So there we go, thank you. Sorry, Denzel, I think you're muted.
Sorry there, hello?
That works.
Can you hear me now? Great. Hi, I'm Denzel from Expect Defiance. That's my little show. I am a musician from Brantford, as was said, and I'm coming from Brantford today in the basement here. I'd like to do some introductions and introduce the community members who will be doing the talk today. And I hope you guys enjoy. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Dave Hind. Dave Hind is a self-described thing maker, and he is known to create artworks that are based out of salvaged aluminum into these beautiful collages. And he has headed the Aluminum Quilting Society, which is his collaborative effort in doing a lot of his thing making. And he's also a musician. And he's created a wonderful instrument that I played myself called the Scorpiotron. And as well, you played drums in the Fox Silva. And you're a true community creator and artist. Dave, if you'd like to see if you can add anything else to that I may have missed and introduce yourself.
Oh, that was pretty great, Denzel. I think you covered everything.
Great. Be excited to talk today.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Glad to hear it.
Nervous, but yeah, I'll get the hang of it.
Yeah, it's a new world. Zoom is a new place that I've never been before, basically, you know. That's what everything feels like this year, like a new land. All right, Dave, I'm gonna move on here. I'd like to introduce Chris George, who is one of the co-founders of the Ford Plant, and that was a music venue that in the early 2000s, founded in 2002, that was very pivotal in the community of artists and musicians and people who like to see live music and interesting things. And I know for me, I've only gotten a chance to be in that venue a few times, but it was always something that you heard a story about who played there. Oh, wow, they played there. It was a place for creatives and musicians who really had something eclectic, something truthful, something unique. It was a place for artists to really, and musicians in Brantford, to really care about the music and express themselves with the music being the forefront of it. And it was a unique place. And upon the closing of the Ford Plant, the energy of that space of creation and outlet for community moved over to something Chris George started called the ZZZ Art and Music Series. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, ZZZ kind of relates to how the city was asleep or not quite awoken. You know, the culture here could be rich and is rich, but it wasn't quite awoken to the value of the space and whatnot. And in addition to that, now Z Brantford is the current incarnation of that, if I'm not mistaken. And you've had a design business for many years, and you're a zine creator. And yeah, you've been doing great things in town. Is there anything I've missed, Chris, to introduce you as that?
No, that's actually exactly what I was going to say about myself. So thanks for reading my mind.
Fantastic. All right.
Thanks for that, by the way.
Yeah, it was fun to do. Are you excited to have the chat?
I'm super excited. I've done a few things in my life. This is something I've never done before. So we'll see how it goes. Excited.
All right. I'd like to introduce next Tim Ford, the other co-founder of the Ford Plant. This is a true leader, I'd say, a musician who's known from some acts that are pretty legendary around these parts, the Vermicious Kinid, the Raccoon Wedding. People may think that the Ford Plant may be named after you, but yes and no, not really. But Tim is definitely someone who headed the great Ford Plant, and you're currently the head buyer at Sunrise Records, and you have a show that you're working on called This Is the Thing, TIT, if I'm not mistaken. Is there anything else you'd like to add for your intro there, Tim?
I just missed your face in real life, and hopefully I'll see it soon, bud. That was great.
All right. And who do we have next? Here we have Gerry Lafleur. And Gerry was at one point the operations manager of the Arts Block in Brantford. The Arts Block was a gallery, a venue, a creative space for classes and community events that has existed in nearly, I guess, 3 spots at this time in Brantford during a certain period of time. And Gerry as well is a writer and definitely someone who's been very active in theater and creating productions and such. And as well, he's currently working with Brant Theater Workshops. Gerry, let me know if there's anything else I missed there for your intro. How are you feeling? I think we have you muted there, Gerry.
There you go. I couldn't find the button. I kept touching your face. I hope it's all right. I apologize for that, Denzel.
I feel okay right now so far. Hopefully it doesn't leave a rash.
The only thing that might be missing from your bio of me is I make music, but I don't let anyone hear it.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I was in a band when I was in high school, and I still have instruments and ears and hands, so I do that. And so I'm jealous of all you guys for various reasons, but I'm excited to hear from all of you, my friends. Exciting.
All right, Gerry, thank you for that. So today we're here to take these gentlemen and talk about basically what community and art and creativity and literature and painting or whatever it is that you use to express yourself, how does creativity and community intertwine, and like the spaces that support the creativity, the music or whatever art form that informs, you know, your choices of who are your close friends, your peers, maybe just even in the vibe of the music you listen to might, you know, relate in some way to the people that you choose to be friends with, etc. And I just want to see if we can deep dive onto, firstly, the sparks of creativity and community that you've had in your formative years, your youth, your childhood, and then to speak upon, you know, as you're coming of age, the great things that you guys have done in building your own part of that, not as a fan or someone on the outside, but someone who's truly engaging with your community and your work in whatever way, and to see how we can bridge the gap and into the future. And those are the three things I'd like to touch on, like how we can take that spark and move it forward around the city of Brant to see how we can go from murdered city to sleeping city to city that's alive again and awake. So yeah, I'm gonna start off basically my first question. It's, you know, these are pretty broad questions. I just want to get to know, yeah, like how you guys feel. So what was the spark that got you interested in creativity and how that intersects with your community? I'll start with you, Gerry, if you don't mind. I guess we'll talk last.
Sure. It's interesting that the spark implies that there was a point where I wasn't interested in any of that stuff. So I guess being born was the spark. In utero, not much to do, right? It's a little bit like quarantine. But I feel like the environment that I grew up in was hospitable to artistic experience and artistic expression. My mother, who was not, I don't know she was just normal housewife mom, right, in suburban Kitchener. She took me to the Lego factory back when Samsonite and Stratford made Lego, and she did that. That was awesome because I was right into Lego, and this was 1970, right? So it's a while ago. And she also got a guy to come in and teach drawing to my sister, my older sister, who was the most interested, but some of our friends, and she just organized that. So, and she had a vinyl recording of Oklahoma, the soundtrack with Shirley Jones and whoever else was in it, which was killer. And my brother had Led Zeppelin 2 and Sgt. Pepper's and Abbey Road and stuff, you know, Bridge Over Troubled Water. It was good stuff, good reference points there. And anyway, that was the sort of environment. I don't know when it started, but I have no other way of understanding the world maybe except through things that are performed or done or, you know, created in some way. I don't know if that makes sense. But.
Yeah, it does. Tell me a little bit more about your band that you played in when you were younger. I did not know this about you at all.
Here's why I'm not in a band anymore, because I play guitar and I was playing bass. I had a nice Gibson G3 bass that was stolen 20 years ago. Anyway, my friend was a huge Rush fan. So you've probably heard of Geddy Lee. Well, my friend Mark wanted me to play all these Geddy Lee parts. And I could play my way through Limelight and, you know, hack my way through 20 minutes of 2112 and, you know, everything John Rutsey played on the first record I could play, but anyway, it was more than I could actually do. So I do like 3-chord stuff now. But it was fun. It was a little like the Ford plant where we rehearsed in this, somehow the people at Income Trust in Kitchener let us rent out an old office on the 6th floor of this building, this walk-up building that's been torn down now. But like, it was a legit place with lawyers' offices and stuff. And we had amps and pot and beer up on this, in this place that we took the elevator to. Everyone's going home in their trench coats and their, you know, their lunch bags, and the secretaries and bankers, and we're rolling our amps up in the main elevator. So I feel like I've been seeking something like that as I've gotten older, to sort of re-experience that excitement and community, if you want. Yeah, that's that.
And theater as well. Was that something that started young for you? Your interest in theater, other than Oklahoma?
Yeah. I saw when I went to high school, I went to this all boy high school in Kitchener. And when I was in grade 9, I was real keener. And they were putting on the play for that year was Bertolt Brecht's Galileo. So I got my mom to take me to it. I didn't know anything at that time about Bertolt Brecht, but I knew who Galileo was. And I saw that, and that was cool. That was super cool. The vice principal who used to give me detentions was he was like I think he played the Pope or something, the vice principal. And it was weird to see him in this, you know, other reality. Anyway, that was exciting. And I don't know, I think I only got into theater, like I write plays and perform. I perform as little as possible because I can't remember what I'm supposed to say or when I'm supposed to be on stage or whatever, right? It's a struggle. But I feel like that was more driven by my connection. I moved to Brantford and met people involved in theater, and it was literally a way to belong to something and have something to do with people, right? I moved to Brantford, I didn't know anybody here, and that's how I started knowing people. And that's basically, the theater led me into connecting to people like you guys. That was basically it, right? Through the Ford plant, by the way, the connection of people through that group. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, thank you so much for that intro. One more thing. What were your heroes musically, artistically, quickly? What were some of those? I know you're a Rush fan, but like who else?
Jimmy Page, Paul McCartney and John Lennon, and Paul Simon and David Bowie.
Mm.
Yeah, and now Bjork. I like Bjork. But there you go.
All right, thank you so much, Gerry. I'm going to move on now to Dave. So just to reiterate, just what is your connection with creativity, art, visual arts, and more, whatever that means to you in your youth and your childhood? What brought that spark of creativity that has you moving on and being a significant creator around here?
Yeah, I got to agree with Gerry. I think it's one of those, I was thinking about this. It seems like it was always there, and it was always the funnest part of the day. And I definitely got exposed to art classes, and we had soupies that were these sort of teenagers who would have a box in the park, and they would open up this box in the summer, and it would be full of balls and art supplies. And so you could go in the summer and just make stuff. And so I think it was around us, but I know when I was in high school, we started to do a thing where we would do scribble drawings, and just you'd do a scribble and you'd pass it to your friend, and then they would try to make something out of it. And I'm surprised at like how much that influenced me, and like maybe that's almost the most important thing I learned in high school while I was there. Just developing my brain to just create out of these scribbles. I don't know, like I think that my understanding of the world is that you couldn't be an artist. You couldn't. I think there was a bit more of a connection to music, but as far as visual art, it was really abstract to imagine what a life as an artist would be like. So I don't think that. I think as much as I always enjoyed it and it was always in me, and I was doing it all the time, it was always like, what are you going to do though? That question of what are you going to do with your life? And so it was like not a hobby exactly, but it was just something you do for fun. And yeah, I think I wish there was a bit more. I'm happy to see that now people are, it seems like kids are exposed much more to life as an artist, or what would that mean? So I know I did end up in art school. I didn't try to get there. I ended up going for science, and again, because art school didn't seem like it was a reality. But pretty quickly, I realized it was my reality, and that community was really helpful to start to imagine what it looked like to just immerse yourself in arts all the time. And yeah, I don't know if that.
All right. As far as music, you play drums. Were you from a musical household? How did you get into playing?
Yeah, it's true. Music was a bigger thing in our house, and we had piano lessons, and I was really interested in drums. I got a drum kit for Christmas that was a paper drum kit, and I think pretty much by Christmas dinner, every head was smashed, and yeah, it felt really good. I loved it. And then I did get a kit over about 3 years. I would get sort of a piece at each holiday, whether it was my birthday or Christmas. And so slowly this kit was built. And then I kind of gave it up and played guitar and sang. But when I was in art school, I was waffling back and forth between wanting to do art and wanting to do music. And again, I don't know if it was my upbringing, but there was this real voice of like, how are you going to make a living out of this? That's always been in my head anyways. It's helped me, but maybe to a detriment in some ways. But when I was on the fence about that, I dropped out of art school for a bit, and then went back with the notion that I would fake it. I really wanted to do music, but I would finish my degree by making sculptural drums and sort of trick the art people into giving me an art degree. And so that I think is when I really started to get a handle on community and art, and it was about the experience of it rather than the object. So the object was important, but it really was these instruments that were you mentioned the Scorpiotron. They're like multi-person instruments. So it really took a group to truly facilitate this instrument, what it could do. Yeah.
All right, Dave, I love that. Thank you. One more question. Who were your personal heroes artistically or musically or what have you, creatively?
They're always changing. But I've been thinking a lot about like local people. I know there was, I did see some Norval Morrisseaus when I was quite young, and those really made an impact on me. But I grew up with a guy named Gord Puller, who I still work with. He was a grade above me, and he was just amazing. So he's in Hamilton. He's still in the art scene there, and so he was a huge influence. And all those kind of those people that were like a grade ahead that were playing music. There was a guy, Emilio Roberto, in Hamilton, and Dave King, and so these people that were doing it, that were dedicated. But again, it was all in music. I didn't have well, I shouldn't say that. Gord was a visual artist. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave. I'm going to move on to Chris George now. Chris, if you let me know your childhood and your youth. What brought you to creativity and music and the arts and zines and being a facilitator, a screen printer, and whatnot? Yeah.
Yeah, probably a little different of story than most people, but my interest in design and the arts really started happening once I got politically motivated. You know, focusing on different injustices and stuff, and going through high school and college and really focusing on stuff like that. I don't know, everything seemed really rigid and sort of everything had to fit somewhere. And then when you sort of pull back on politics and sort of find your own way in that, I don't know, you just find this like creative realm in there. I also grew up with an athletics background, so as I was playing sports and stuff. So oddly enough, I think that really helped form my design perspective. And I've always, you know, I actually grew up poor, so having the ability to do a lot with a little was always really important to me. So I think those three aspects sort of really pinpointed me to my style today.
All right, great to hear it. And who are your heroes when it comes to politics or design or what? Yeah, that realm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the one hero I would consider is my mom. I was raised by a single mom. She influenced me a lot, motivated me a lot, and gave me this drive. And then when it comes to heroes in art and design, I don't really have any heroes, but like motivators, people who can pump me up to like keep focused and keep driving to, you know, finish projects or start new things. And, you know, probably the biggest one would be MJ. And I'm not talking about Michael Jackson. I'm talking about Michael Jordan. You know, shoot from the elbow right there, you know?
There you go.
But, you know, I probably come from a little different of a background, but I'm not afraid of it, you know? That's just who I am.
Thank you. Awesome.
And I'm a bit more, I'm a pretty efficient talker too.
Yeah.
Short and sweet.
I like that. It works for this. All right. Thank you so much, CG. All right, Mr. Tim Ford, if you could enlighten me on your upbringing and what the spark was for you with art and music and etc.
I think I might have to agree with the fellas there that it wasn't really a spark. I don't know. That seems like there was like a eureka moment or something, but it was really just this weird slow burn of teenage boredom. And, you know, I mean, I love Brantford more than, you know, I'm a Navy brat. I've moved every 2 years since I was, you know, 12 years old. So I really call Brantford my home and I really, really love it. But for a very long time, it really didn't feel like Brantford loved me. I was kind of on that weird outskirt. I didn't really want to go to yearbook or, you know, yoga in the park. So the sort of general consensus of the city of Brantford, they didn't really care. And I didn't really care about them. I was just some idiot kid. So what drove Chris and I to do the foreplant, I mean, there's been a lot of romantic versions of it. And I'm sure I was part of that problem, but like, we were just bored and we were naive to the point of like ignorant, not knowing we weren't supposed to do this weird thing. So, you know, I started putting on shows maybe when I was like 15 or 16, completely knowing that my disgustingly horrible band wasn't going to get shows on itself because we were so bad. So I had to put on my own shows to start playing. And that led to me realizing that, you know, I kind of like that side of things a little better than being this weird little clown on stage. So it really was just necessity out of boredom. And we knew that there's this community within the Brantford community that wants nothing to do with the community of Brantford. And to be completely honest, that's okay. That's a part of Brantford too. And I think what the foreplant did was, you know, foreplant was pretty gross and it was kind of warts and all. And to see some sort of beautiful thing come out of this gross thing, you know, that flower in the sidewalk thing, but like it's true. It really, that's really what pushed us to do it for so many years, because to be honest, it kind of sucks sometimes to see how the sausage was made.
For sure.
Was real bad sometimes. So super proud of how it happened, but it really was just sort of this natural occurrence of boredom and not listening to people saying that is the dumbest idea in the world. We just shrugged and went on with it, and, you know.
Okay, I'm just gonna roll.
There?
Please.
Because yeah, like that's very true. But I just want to add a point, like a driving force of creativity for me and probably some people on the panel has been my peers. Like I've always surrounded myself with really creative people. So just that Ford-Brant community or that atmosphere was a very huge driving force for a lot of people for a long time. So I just want to add that. And it was pretty gross too.
But that's the thing. I mean, I can sincerely tell you from the bottom of my heart, I used the way I ran the Ford plant with everything I do, be it work related or humanity related. It's just, if you're talking about doing something for 5 minutes, you've already wasted 4 minutes. You know what I mean? You just kind of have to, you do it, and you can't wait for people to give it to you. You just kind of have to do it. And I'm sure that's everywhere. That's in every small to medium city in the world, but it really felt really polarizing in Brantford. And our reaction wasn't to burn it down. Our reaction was to build it up. So,
right. I'm going to roll that question, the first question, into our second question. And that is basically, yeah, the recent past. So just continue on track there for the Ford plant. Like, how did you go start the Ford plant? What was it like at that time?
So
you and Chris, you're very welcome to hop in when you would like to as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I will.
You guys can answer this together. You know, we'll do that.
That'd be lovely. So my partner in crime for life, Chris George, and I knew Chris. He used to come to my shows, and he started putting out this zine that scared the crap out of me because it had all these crazy political things. But I was immediately drawn to Chris and knew that by associating myself with him, I would have to go somewhere, if that makes sense. He wouldn't let me sit down with like, oh, you want to start a venue? Let's do it. Okay. And so we just pushed ourselves. We found the first hole in the wall we could on the south side of Colburn. Started putting on shows immediately there for a few months, and then got like shut down, like super, like fire department, health busting down the door, like super shut down because we didn't know we needed permits. So then we got legal and moved across the street to where the old, the new Ford plant is.
Yes.
I saw, so the Ford plant was an all ages music venue that was not for profit. We didn't take any dough from it. And so that's what it is. I saw somebody ask what that was. So, but yeah, we kind of just opened it up, not realizing you needed to do everything. And it worked for 8 years. I mean, it didn't work at all for 8 years, but we ran it for 8 years. It was great.
Right. Yeah, and it's definitely had a huge legacy on the city for me and people my age who like music. It was really an amazing place for music to be. How did you see the community that sprung around the venue? How did you see the impact of how you've changed people's lives with your teenage half-brained idea? Like,
I think personally for me, I mean, like I don't feel that way. I think if anybody looked at me and said anything positive, it's like, if that weirdo creep can do it, then literally anyone can. So, but I don't know if Chris wants to start talking now?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't think the Ford plant could have happened anywhere. I think it was just something, there were so many talented people, and you know, Tim and I and some of the people get a lot of the accolades for it, but there were just so many really talented people that weren't in bands, you know, like it was band oriented and band centric, but there were so many people that were doing other things, promoting, being creative, that just really made it a really unique place. Like I don't really think it was just a building and that was it. Like there was so many talented people, and you see where the people that were involved in the Ford plant or grew up around it, where they've ended up, and it just speaks to that. Like they're doing amazing things in the communities they live in right now. So
Case
if
in
Tim and I were
point.
the spark for that, you know, I'm thankful for that personally.
Absolutely. I was going to say, case in point, I literally know all of the fellas up here from the Ford plant. So, and not because they played there, because they were doing something also amazing that we just so happened to brush up against. So
Yeah, and not to hijack this conversation with the Ford plant, but obviously the Ford plant has this legacy. It booked some of the biggest bands in the world. You know, I could go down the list, Arcade Fire, you know, blah, 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 blah. But to me, the biggest legacy the Ford plant had is it sparked so many Brantford bands, local bands, people that wanted to play music. And whenever a show would come up or we would book a show, the first thing we would talk about is who's the local playing, who can open the show, or you know what I mean? Because the local component, the local bands, musicians was by far the most important aspect, and everything else was just really added to everything personally.
Right. Thank you so much, guys, for that. I'm gonna swing that into Gerry. I'd like to ask you that question. I'd like to also mention Josh Bean was also another person who was working on the Ford plant, and I got to meet him at the Arts Block when he started to work through there. Gerry, I'd like to ask you what you've been up to in the recent past, and your contributions to the Arts Block, which in some ways at that time felt like it was an offshoot of the Ford plant, and spiritually maybe from Josh's connection to it and whatnot. And I'd like to say, I'd let you run with it from there.
Yeah, thanks. I have to say the Ford plant was a big inspiration for remaining in Brantford. I moved here and it was a desert of no art. For the most part, no scene, right? But that place, I heard on the CBC an ad for a band called Young and Sexy, and they played a track from them, and I thought, wow, they sound pretty good. So I called up. I don't know who I spoke to there. They had a phone, and said, "Here's when the show is." It's super low key, and I went, and it was crazy. It was terrific. So one of the things that happened when I moved to Brantford in 2005 is I needed to meet people. The places like the Ford plant and the connections in the community that I was able to make, they created a life for me here in a real way, right? To meet people and have new friends and things to do. And the Brantford Arts Block was on Dalhousie Street. And as we've already sort of touched on, the community is small enough that lots of people, including Josh, who was with Tim and Chris at the Ford plant, he and others, Aliki and Dave, I think, you and Garner, Rob probably, started this gallery sort of space with a bit of a performance space. And they did really great stuff there. Here's a thing that I really loved there. A guy named Kemeny Babineau taught me this Dadaist poetry technique. There was an evening where the people who showed up, maybe 10 or 12 of us. Can you imagine 12 people who want to do some Dada poetry? And this technique is called erasure. You take, could be I think I had an photocopy of an encyclopedia page, and with a magic marker, you obliterate the words that you do not want in your poem, right? So whatever you leave, that's now your poem. And, you know, it's, as you can imagine, you start with this finite set of words that you somehow turn into something. And that blew my mind to do that. And so the arts block was this place that I found where that could go on. And Rob Porteous, who an artist and maker and all around good guy, he and his wife brought this clips of Bollywood musical interludes. I don't know if you watch Bollywood films, but some of these are outrageous. And I mean, in the best possible way, just fantastic. Like in the middle of a spy movie, there'd be this deadly chase, and then it'll be a party scene with people shooting, and then this waterfall will be there, and then the waterfall will kind of be on wheels and move out of the way, and there'll be a whole like Las Vegas dance number in behind it, and then that's 5 minutes later, it's back to the chase again. Anyway, these kinds of cultural experiences that I enjoyed, and I assumed other people would, that was the place that they were available. So I hung around there and volunteered. That particular project, the arts block, kind of hit the rails because the rent went up on that commercial storefront kind of space. It's where what's that burger joint? The Works. The Works is there at 80 Dalhousie Street now. So it's that size of a place, right? A storefront. The leaders at the time of the arts block had an opportunity to move into this much larger building on Colburn Street, just past Clarence, an old Union Gas office building with a bit of a basement garage kind of thing, super grungy and damp in the basement, but it could have been cool. Anyway, blew their brains out. The people blew their brains out on that. That was never going to go. And then a landlord in another part of town had this beautiful space from 1905 or some kind of thing like that, with steel I-beams and wooden ceilings and brick walls, exposed brick, just beautiful lofty kind of looking space. That turned out to be fantastic. It was a lot of work. Tim was talking about how difficult it was to make the Ford plant go. This place was 10,000 square feet of untidiness and dust and empty beer bottles and fun everywhere.
But you guys reached a lot of people. I feel like that time and that space specifically, whenever there was an event that was promoted well, it was of some of the highest quality I've ever seen in Brantford, which is, some people would probably say is unlike Brantford. You guys had the top-notch audio, top-notch lighting, like the top tier. And it was amazing seeing productions and teachers who were, of the highest caliber. And it really reached a lot of people. Could you touch on that more?
Well, thank you for mentioning that, reminding me of that. I saw it a different way. I mean, because running the venue, there's a lot of stuff to do, right? Like
absolutely,
the show's going to be on, but I got to go pick up 18 cases of beer, or 14 or 12 or whatever it is. I got work to do. The show's on. I got work to do. All that kind of stuff. But I could clearly see that part's not so much fun. Setting up the lights and working with Glenn to set up the sound, and then the events going on, and now you're actually immersed in it. That was very, very cool for sure. That was outstanding. I feel like where were you going to talk about what kinds of things were going on, or what tell me what
oh no, it's all. It's all right, Gerry. I just wanted to let you know that you reached a lot of people, and like just how the arts block was a pillar for the community and people doing art, and it really brought together so many people who felt almost like, wow, this thing is in our city. I had no idea. I just kind of wanted to express that sentiment, that I feel like a lot of people who ended up stumbling into the arts block, saw something that they almost felt like, wow, I didn't know this fantastic high quality thing was within our city. And me too, my first time being there before I started to volunteer, it was just mind blowing that it was even there.
That's true, and it's been a while. It's 2015 it closed, right? So that's 6 years ago. I'd forgotten about that. And here's where you're exactly right. It was awesome, right? It was an awesome space. You walk in, it is fantastic, and it would be fantastic in Toronto or Montreal or anywhere, right? It might, and with no money,
It truly felt like a metropolitan venue, in a larger city in a way. I'm not saying that Brantford can't hold that, but just something interesting to know. All right. Yeah, Gerry, thank you so much for that. I'm just going to move on for time here. Dave Hind, I'd like to ask you your more recent experiences of being a great artist around these parts. Dave Hind's work, if you go to the farmers market in Hamilton, you'll see one of his pieces. The Brantford Library has unveiled one of his pieces recently. Just tell me about how your work and the Aluminum Quilting Society has kind of bridged community and visual art.
Yeah, I go back to the original arts block, and we did a piece in 2008, 2009, and it really, the success of it, I think, had a lot to do with having an actual space that was legit, so we could invite schools, and so it was great for me, who was just starting to get excited about working with all these different layers of the community. The arts block gave this professionalism, I guess. Like inviting school kids over to my studio might have been problematic, but having it right downtown, and it was amazing. And that sort of that was the springboard then to do a project that we did at Laurier, and that again was just another level of adding, sort of making it a bigger group than just what I was organizing, so that it was connected to the school, it was connected to the curriculum. So there was a class that was in there. We were in the old bank building on Dalhousie Street, and that was amazing, being right downtown. And it was this fun project that, fun, sorry, that's not quite the right word. It was this pretty intense project that was all about problematic Canadian history. And it made sense being in Brantford, and being so close to Six Nations, and having a similar problematic history in Brantford, as like so many places across Canada. And it was a tough sort of project, as Taylor can sort of attest to. That's when I met Taylor. It was really challenging for myself, for the students, for the faculty. But it was one of these projects that it really stirred shit up at Laurier. And I think, like, I met some great friends and some great allies through that project. And it was one of these moments where I think I've always dreamed that these projects will have the kind of effects that things like the Ford plant and the art crawl, and these very simple ideas that just a group of people get together and start up, but they have these far-reaching effects on community. I think I was always kind of dreaming about having that the projects actually work, and that I think that Laurier project was a great example of that it actually got into the institution a little bit, and anyway, it was a great opportunity. And then sorry.
Yeah.
That project, then the people that I met from that project led right into the Lauren Harris. There was a call from Glenhurst to do a memorial to Lauren Harris, and we had just been talking all about these issues about making monuments for primarily white men of sort of European descent. And so that was a really, it's like it put the groundwork for that project to still honor, I'm such a fan of Lauren Harris and the Group of Seven, but it was really nice to take another approach at it, and to have a public space. Like, this is such a dream for me, and I think for a lot of visual artists to have their work truly out in public. So
to reiterate quickly there, I'm sorry to interject. That piece you made with Lauren Harris was something that was community based. You had people collaborate on that piece, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the idea that we pitched to Glenhurst was in the competition was to create a contemporary Group of Seven, and that would be a more equitable Group of Seven. And so those artists would then decide who they wanted to celebrate and what figure they wanted to contribute to sit around the fire. So we had to put Lauren Harris in, which was great. Anyway, I don't know, like it was those projects where I really fell in love with Brantford. I'm from Hamilton originally, and the community seemed small enough, and it seemed like there was lots of potential. It wasn't like all of these areas had already been claimed. There was just, and I think a lot of people, maybe in part because there was some lack of opportunity or venues. Like, I think a lot of artists were just really excited about any kind of project. So.
Right. All right. Thank you so much for that, Dave. I'm going to open it up to everybody now. And on that note of all of your guys' contributions to the community and things you guys have built, I just want to ask you guys, from all of your endeavors, the Ford Plant, the Arts Block, your pieces that you've put up, Dave, and the Aluminum Quilting Society, your work in theater, all the things that you guys have contributed to the community, regardless if you feel like it's you who've personally did it or not, but things that you guys have touched have really brought to light so many great creatives and artists and whatnot, and people who are just doing great things. Sometimes they're not even creatives, they're adjacent and they love the creativity in the work, but that's still just as important. I feel like all of you guys are people who are supporting the arts and bridging the gap to bring people into the fold. And I just want to ask, so my first question was about the spark of creativity that you feel was already always there, and fair enough, and to you guys putting direct action into that feeling and building something. And what I want to ask you guys all is, how can we take the city that is, in my experience, still half asleep when it comes to the arts? It's there, but it depends how much it's respected or what have you. How do we build something that will last here? Not even logistically, but if you have logistic ideas, great. But like, what could be done to the culture of the city to have even a revival of this era? Because it seems like the era we spoke of, the Ford Plan and the Arts Block, obviously quarantine has changed things quite a bit, but I feel like we're at a pivotal change in general. How could we have a renaissance of the great times that you guys have, touched the community of Brantford? Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. I can only imagine that there are some kids somewhere who are not on this Zoom call who are plugging in their guitars, or they're spray painting some bridge somewhere. Those are the people you should be asking, right? Because what it sounds like from what I've heard is the emergence of what you're describing. That's an organic thing that happened because Tim was bored. Dave, I don't think you created the Arts Block or were you were one of the founders, right? On the document that I have in a file somewhere, the signatures the Ontario government had to have, you and Garner and other people are on that. I don't think you created that space with any kind of intention that it should germinate into some cultural thing, right? It was a smaller view than that, maybe. I feel like it's the energy of people who want to create things that creates the scene, right? And so for us to go and try and do it, I don't know, here's what's happening for me. I'm thinking about the river and doing things down there again. I don't know what that'll be. Maybe we'll baptize some people down there. Maybe we'll reenact Brant's Crossing. Maybe we'll get the Dave's Hogs and let them follow. I don't know what, but there's that, right? But it's people that do it, individuals.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, definitely just to keep rolling with that. It definitely starts with the youth. It starts with some sort of motivation to want to go out there and, you know, do something interesting with their friends. I feel like there is a general lack of wanting to do that, and that was even before COVID. There's just a lack of maybe originality or something. I don't know. There are young people that could be doing this, and they're just not doing it. You know what I mean? So it does start with the youth, but I also feel like there needs to be like a bit of a mentorship, because there's a lot of components to starting things, important things, and sometimes you just don't know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, that could stop you from doing it, right? So I think that those two aspects are important for the future in Brantford. And I think also maybe just like a disconnect from the establishment. The establishment controls a lot of what youth are seeing, i.e. Glenhurst, the schools. I think if we take creativity out of those spheres, it's just gonna, you know, more creative outlooks are gonna sort of come from that. You know what I mean? I feel like we're sort of stifled with what we're exposed to in Brantford, and maybe some of these old people on this panel or that are listening to this need to encourage some of the young people in their lives to, you know, look elsewhere for creative influence.
Right. Cool. Tim, any ideas on that?
No, I'm good. No, I was good. I agree with CG. I think, first off, like I will commend whoever's doing the activities for the city of Brantford. I think they're doing a great job. I think they're really, you can really feel their you know, labor of love, and they're really holding on to that small town mentality that we all, you know, long for, even though I'm sure it never existed. But so, I mean, absolutely not taking anything away from them. I have no interest in it. I mean, they're all pretty family oriented, and I have no desire. And I know there's a large number of people that I don't really feel drawn to the kind of vanilla. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I love vanilla ice cream. I absolutely love it. I'm not saying taking anything away, but there is a subculture that will always be pushing back, and specifically in Brantford, there's always this kind of underbelly of the Market Street kids that like don't care about that community, but that doesn't mean they're not part of the community. And I think that's really what we saw with the Ford plant. There was a lot of pushback. We were pushing back too, because we were just snarky little punks, but there was a lot of pushback and just a general consensus with, let's just say, elder statespeople on city council just didn't get it. They didn't get why we weren't taking money. They just assumed bad things were happening because the kids who smoke cigarettes and listen to rock and roll music were coming to a literal hub. I know talking to some people it's gotten a little better, but it's still out there. I think where you're going to see a lot of great change is that tiny underbelly of Brantford that can't relate to the city of Brantford as a corporation or whatever. But that's really where you have to look at where the change is going to come from, because you know, yoga in the park is absolutely amazing, but So is smoking cigarettes at the river.
Absolutely. You guys can interject if you'd like. So I guess there's a bit of a consensus that, you know, the youth of the future, but they are in a way. Like you were, you know, a bit snotty nosed and listened to some Fugazi or whatever you were into and said, yeah, I'm going to do it myself. Screw it. And that's kind of what has made change, because it's out of the establishment. So, but it's also true because it's out of the establishment. It's something that came from your spirit that you just wanted to put out in the world. And like, I feel like that's like, that's how all important, beautiful things are made. You know, something that came out of your heart, your conscience, you know, telling you that you should friggin' try something.
And I'll stop talking after this, I promise. But like,
yeah. Anybody who'd like to just interject. With the Q&A is starting very shortly as well.
I just feel like there's a spectrum of what Brantford is, and all of it's good. You know, the community-based stuff is absolutely great, but so is the middle, like the Ford plant being gross was great. So was the arts block being a little, you know,
cleaned up, yeah,
concise and stuff. And so was the Sanderson Center. We need everything. So me sitting and being like, stupid, like that's not the point. That we're not going to change anything. We need every aspect of all art running on full capacity at all times to make any slight change in Brantford, I think. So I'll stop.
Yeah, and I think the people in City Hall need to be a little younger. Like they you know what I mean? Like they act old. They don't want to acknowledge that there are some artists that don't want to associate with Glenhurst or organized art. They want to be disorganized, and you know what I mean? Like they really limit what people are exposed to. And I don't know. I think really the answer is going to come from outside the city and their programming for sure.
Cool. Dave?
Oh, I like when I said about these sort of things that catch fire, like the art crawl in Hamilton, and those are all outside of the city, outside of the institution. And I don't know, I guess like for me, I think when I first came here, I didn't see a lot of on the street places where there was art going on. So, but where there was Rose Reese had her ceramic studio, and you know, where you are, CG. So it's nice to see that there's still some people. And I do see like the Artist Cafe, I think it's moved. I just saw a different version of it around the corner. And those things give me some hope that there is, at least for somebody who isn't connected to a group, maybe they can find their people. And so, yeah, I don't. But the one thing I was going to say is that I find it's very difficult, what goes on in the government or in the municipal government level, and I don't really want to work with them that much, but maybe at this point in our careers where we actually have some legitimacy, maybe there's something that we can add our voices to kind of try to change that a little bit, or so.
I would agree with you, Dave. I felt like I had to become a grown-up and deal with the city to do the River Festival. That was a huge, in my mind, it was very simple. Get some artists and some bands. We'll put some bands where you played guitar in that little sandbar there, Dave, that first year. We'll put some art in the river, and we'll get some circus acrobats to swing off of that bridge, that rusty iron bridge. All that seemed really simple to me. We'll sit on these rocks. We'll have some performance in front of the rocks on the water, however that goes, on that island maybe. It's super simple, but then I have to go and present to the city special events advisory team. All I want to say about that was eventually they gave up trying to fight the idea, and they didn't know, their heads exploded or something. I don't know what, but I don't encourage working with the city necessarily if you don't have to, but if you want to use their venues or do stuff publicly on public property, you got to work with somebody, right? But the main thing is have an idea and have something that you want to do. I guess that's what creates a scene, right? Like Chris, when you were doing those things at the station, the ZZZ, what do you call it? ZZ or ZZ?
Yeah, I called it lots of things, but we'll go with Z for lack of a better opinion.
So you're at the train station, you're at the creamery doing your thing. I gotta say, I've told you before, I was inspired by what you were doing to take that idea and do it down by the river, just a kind of somewhat curated selection of talent. Basically who would answer my emails or texts or whatever, right? That's who qualified. But it seems that's what makes things happen. I don't know what motivated you necessarily. I know you knew lots of cool music to present. You always had something very, very interesting, and was a thing not to be missed. Right? It was just show.
Yeah, I mean, with Zed, I always looked at Zed as a project, and fortunately / unfortunately, there's a lot of naysayers in Brantford. So they're like, oh, you can't do that. That wouldn't work. You can't do that. So anytime someone said you can't do that, I would just go do it. I'd go pack 150 people in a train station where their bathrooms don't work, and we'd have a great night. People would talk about it 10 years later. I hijacked Brantford parks to have some people play music with a guitar. I gotten lots of trouble for it. The liability aspect of bringing 50 people to a park with a guitar for the city is crazy, because it's something that should just be able to happen organically or not organically. But in the city's viewpoint, it's like insurance. Who's responsible for this? Is this a political thing? They have this checklist, and it ruins it, frankly. They take something that could be really awesome and they boil it down into something that's a waste of time sometimes.
It is a bureaucratic process for sure.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna quickly, just for time, I'd like to open it up for a Q&A. So to all of our participants here in Zoom and the YouTube, could you give us some questions for our guests here? Let me see if I can get up that YouTube link here.
I have a question for Tim. Tim, do you have a band anymore?
You know what? Not really. I think I'm over it. I think I'm over it. I still like playing with my friends and making as much loudness as possible, but I'm over it. You got to lug stuff to places. You got to go up there and pretend. I don't know. I'd much rather watch you guys.
It was fun watching you. I saw you at Harmony Square, maybe the first show they put on there. I don't know if you remember that. I don't know if they even had the splash pad finished. It was awesome. Your show was killer. I think you played with O Bijou that day, maybe.
Yeah, we put that on. Rob Michaelchuk did food. And we got in really big trouble for Robbie doing food and making all this loud music, and people at the Sanderson Center complained. That was an arts block thing, I think.
I think that's one of my favorite Brantford stories of all time.
Yeah, so that sounds horrible. Why? Like, what's wrong with food? We know there's cyanide in it, man. This is Jonestown. I have a question here, and this is from Rachel. A comment and a question. It seems like art, music, and visual both are getting more democratized, open to and created by more people. It's a comment. The question is, in social topics where there are multiple perspectives, how can art created by different groups on a similar theme help communities, literally to see a new way forward? do you guys think?
I can only say this from my experience in theater. In theater, you have to collaborate with the other people in your cast and the director and the people lugging the sets around, all that stuff, and the playwright, if the playwright's still alive. You have to collaborate, and sometimes the collaboration and the getting together and playing the game, whatever, like as if a show was a hockey game. You come together, you do the hockey game, and then you go. It's not if I use that analogy, you don't gain the skills of how to play hockey. You gain the skills of how to work with other people, and the collaboration. That's where the growth is. It's not in helping you understand an overt message that's in your art. It can be, but that seems like a little too concrete and linear and too like rational, right? The benefits and the growth is connected in almost intuitively, not accidentally, but it's like incidental to the overt activity you're engaging in, of the planning and the executing and all that, right? I feel like it's the experience of the people in the dialogue who are creating the art and exchanging the viewpoints. It gets through each person's bubble, and that sharing occurs there, and the art is maybe incidental, subconsciously expresses that.
Ava, do you happen to have any thoughts on this? It does make sense, Gerry.
Yeah, no, I think Jerry's hit it on the head. Yeah, the object at the end of it is maybe, just a record of the process, and the process is where I think people they learn something, they're changed, they are challenged on their beliefs. So it really, for me, the community projects were just an excuse to get out and be amongst people on a regular basis around a certain issue or topic. And so.
Yeah. Tim, you unmuted yourself there. Did you have a point to make?
Oh, I don't know if I agree. I think I think the whole point about the more people, the better, in the sense that it breaks down boundaries. As simple as that. The diversity is the only way, the stew is going to get spicy. I mean, it's been pretty bland for a while, and I think it's because people are just I'm using a lot of weird metaphors here, but people stick to the same train every day. They go to, and by bringing more people in a very egoless way, is the only way to create change. I mean, it gets prickly because, to be honest, in the arts community, I've noticed a lot of ego, and the more artists in one room not getting the attention that they want can be detrimental to the entire process. But that's few and far between. And I think everyone is at the point now where we realize that we were so set in very specific ways. The earth was flat and that was it. And now that we all know that it's round or whatever, it's time to start looking at that process and break down everything we knew and just start listening to people who don't agree with you sometimes. So
yeah, sounds good. Any other questions, anyone? We got Q&A coming before I start to ask Tim questions about who burned down the Ford plant or whatever.
I've had 3 cups of coffee. I got a.
All right, Costa. Take care, buddy. See you later. We got some people just talking in the chat here. Let's see here. Yeah, what happened with the Ford plant? Did you get any official police report for what happened there or anything like that?
All I can tell you, dear friend, is that the Ford plant,
the location, I mean. So
the location of the Ford plant has changed twice, and both of those are now destroyed and gone. So one can't help feel a little like something is trying to get rid of us. But to be honest, it's literally just the most perfect metaphor you can imagine of the Ford plant. Like of course it burnt down. Of course it burnt down. Like, what a perfect ending to that hilarious story. And the corner is literally gone. And I drove past it today and just kind of chuckled because, you know, it's there. It's always going to be there. It's a ghost now. It's just a ghost sitting on a corner laughing at everybody. So, but yeah, I literally have no idea. I just found it very peculiar that 2 out of 2 Ford plants have now been destroyed by the city of Brantford. Just trying to get rid of us, man.
This is very mysterious events. I have a question here from Aiden. There's a comment here and a question. Yes, I've been in art circles for a while now, and I have seen the camaraderie in Hamilton and Toronto and been so impressed. I would like to bring that here to Brant. The question is, how do we collaborate together to build community that is proactive in the arts and encourages the arts? What do you think, guys?
It's already here. There's no doubt that that community exists in Brantford. You just got to find the right people. Probably many of them are in this Zoom conference right now. Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting people. And I feel like there is another renaissance of creativity in Brantford right around the corner. And I'm excited for it. I would love to connect with anyone here on projects. And yeah, Brantford's a creative town, creative city, and we need to get rolling again.
I think to be a very physical thing and a very literal thing, it might just need some dummy to open a spot and have like a literal hub for it. I think the reason the Ford plant and the Arts Block and hopefully Zed soon were so successful is that we just put up 4 walls for these weirdos to come and be a community together. So maybe that's it. It might not even be a place. CG was saying, like, maybe we go back to the park. We just take over a park and that's our new meeting spot every week. And we talk about, you know, how to build this community. It just might be as simple as a literal place.
Well, we have a hub cooking right now, 433 Colburn Street. COVID is an issue. Thanks, Jim. But I cannot wait to get people in this room we have created and get rolling. Something to me about Zoom that stifles creativity and getting people in a room, you know, mingling and dishing out ideas in a physical way. That's what, personally, that's what I'm waiting for. But maybe we just gotta move forward now.
I think it's exactly what Tim said, some kind of a space, right? Because once you pack all those people, remember that last show at the Ford plant? It was sweaty and bouncing, and it was crazy. That kind of energy, it doesn't have to be about music, but getting people all in one spot. I think that's what Aiden's really searching for, is the place where people can come together like that. For me, if I had moved here this year or last year even, I don't know where I would go find anyone like that. You know what I mean? There's nothing. If you go to Glenhurst, I don't know what that would do for you. There'd be some art to see.
I'm not allowed in Glenhurst anymore.
You're banned from
who, me? I don't think so.
No, Tim's just talking, I think. I'm pretty sure.
But Chris, that's great news about your space. I can't wait to find out what that means.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wish I could invite people more into the space, but we're just sort of trying to be safe with COVID and all the variants and stuff. But me and Amanda, who run Zed Brantford, have some plans, and we want to see creativity in a weird way, take, weird creativity, overtake Brantford again, and not, your vanilla stuff. And we want to use that creativity to push things forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds right. I want us to make Brantford weird again, because I know, like, all of us who are very young, like in the era of the floor plan, in the era of the arts block, like, they were the things that we looked forward to. Like, for me, it was like there wasn't shit else to do. There really wasn't shit else to do. So it's like I'm either going to a show or going to the arts blog to see if there's some weird programming or something. Because it's like, otherwise, it's like I'm going in front of televisions and books and listening to records, and like there wasn't much that spoke to me in the community of Brantford. Like, I didn't really want to go to the fair. I went to the fair when I was 6 or 7. It was enough. Like, I wanted to do something cool. And it's like, you guys have all been able to, yeah, even if you feel like you weren't the one doing it, you were around cool and interesting things, and you let people think, and you brought people who maybe never would have imagined something that interesting or creative would be in their city to be there. So yeah, I think yeah, it's my duty as a young person around here to like see if I can even try to friggin' bring a spark, like a vibe that you guys have brought, and see if we can carry it on and just make some cool weird stuff in Brantford again. That's what anybody who cares about anything around here, I think, wants as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, I know we're wrapping up or whatever, but
yeah,
there's no reason why Brantford can't be a hub of creativity in Ontario, Canada. You know what I mean? Like, why not?
Why not?
You just got to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have one more comment from Amanda, and she just wanted to tell Tim that wanted to acknowledge all the plants that Tim has behind him. Love to see all that greenery.
So I want to quick shout out to my wife, who does this, who cultivates,
Great work, Dee.
propagates, cultivates.
They're nice plants.
She's a nice
They're
woman.
lovely. All right, Taylor Burzens will be turning us into a mingling room. I'm just going to ask one more time, do we have any more questions before I start coming up with, asking them people their sign and whatever,
Now, while everyone's writing their question, I'd love to see more questions. I like answering questions. I just want to say thank you to you, Denzel and Taylor, for putting this on, inviting everyone on the panel to do this. It's been fun.
Appreciate it.
So thank you very much.
Been great.
Oh, this was great. Thank you so much to all of you for spending some time with us. I feel like I learned a lot. I've known a lot about the spaces, visited the spaces, but getting kind of this deep dive to kind of reflect on that time felt really cool. So thank